Welcome to the Rainmaker Multiplier on Demand, a podcast for leading financial professionals, or rainmakers, and their teams that offer support for securing a successful future. From marketing help to staffing structure, listen and subscribe for actionable insights from advisors and skilled professionals alike.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Rainmaker Multiplier on Demand. Today we have an exciting topic, Medicare, a very timely topic, and have two special guests with us today. First, Ashley Leibowitz, CEO of Assure All Insurance, and Gary Pelfrey, Director of Business Development and Medicare Specialist at J.L. Smith Tax and Wealth Planning. Gary, a returning guest for us. We got you back for more on here, so thank you for being with us today. As we know, a very timely topic with open enrollment approaching now, and with many of our offices with us at C2P having this Medicare practice, some considering it. And I think today's topic is going to help shed some light on that, on how they should be leveraging it, or if they're not, why they should be considering it, and what are the next steps to take towards that. So before we kind of get into the meat of the content, was hoping we could go through with each of you, and Ashley, we'll start with you. If you could please introduce yourself and tell us a little more about your background, especially as it relates to Medicare supplemental insurance.
Sure. And so I started this 12 years ago. My mother was an insurance advisor she's been in it for 20 years, and she sort of got me going. And so I started my own company after working for her for probably a good 5 years, called Assure All Insurance. And I ended up sort of going out of just Medicare and also bringing in some home and auto, and just sort of doing, a broader spectrum of all types of insurance. So that's where I am today. And I work right now out of the Winter Park office in Florida with Petros Advisors and Financial Planning. And JL Smith now has merged with them. So I'm helping all their clients now with all their Medicare and insurance needs.
Great. Thank you. And you, Gary?
Yeah, thank you, Matt, for having me today. My background, my goodness, I go back to 1997 with Jason and his father. Started out knocking on doors with a stack of cards of people turning age 65, and really just kind of looking to help them in any way, insurance-wise, whether it was Medicare supplements. That was, I think, even before Medicare Advantage plans even were around as an option. But, just any form of insurance, final expense, life insurance, long-term care, home health care. And then from there, went on to work with Western Southern Life, AAA rated insurance company, where I was in life insurance sales and promoted into management. And then from there branched off into my own, financial services practice. And over the last 10 years, I've rejoined JL Smith. And, certainly all that background I brought with me, and, now here as our director of business development, and also, our Medicare specialist running that entire lane for us as well. So just excited, for the upcoming annual enrollment period, and always looking to do what's in the best interest of our clients. This is an additional service we provide here. Used to be a service we provided to kind of be a feeder program for our other lanes. But now we've refined that a bit. And, certainly we can talk more about that later. But yeah, that's kind of, my background. Also, about 27 years in financial advising as well. Now I've kind of stepped back more into the, the management of the firm, and, really making sure all those advisors have qualified prospects on their calendar.
Well, they love that. Yeah. And going back door to door, as Jason would say, the literal school of hard knocks. So,
Absolutely.
I guess, Gary, starting with you, and I know it's kind of weird because you are the Medicare specialist there, but what ways have you seen that having, yourself, but more importantly, your role at JL Smith, how has that benefited the firm, having that as part of the mix?
Oh, certainly, Matt, because, I've often said this, and it took me a few years to actually learn this, but healthcare and Medicare planning, it's really important when it comes to how it relates to financial planning. It may be the most important because, one, it's one of the first things that someone who maybe isn't a client will talk to you about. So it's kind of a feeder program for all the other services But also, what it allows you to do is really kind of show those, financial tax clients that you have, already, and also new prospects. It gives them the education and really kind of shows them how they can pass that 20% on to those big insurance companies versus maybe having to call one of our advisors and say, hey, and I need to pull some money out of that IRA because I had an unfortunate health situation. So I call it front end planning. It's important we do that front end planning because everyone's situation is different when it comes to healthcare. Even a husband wife that maybe one may need an advantage plan, one may need a supplement with a Part D. So it's important to start with that healthcare planning on the front end of holistic financial planning. Otherwise, all that great stuff that we do for our clients, it feels the effects of it if we don't do that front end.
Yeah, don't have that well-rounded. How about you, Ashley, with the groups you work with? What are the benefits you've seen, or maybe reinforcing what Gary shared of having a Medicare specialist as part of the mix?
Well, I think the whole idea of sort of one-stop shopping is amazing. Knowing that they can not only go into their financial advisor, they have a Medicare specialist right there to help them with any Medicare questions they need. And we can't be everything to everybody, So a lot of financial advisors don't want to take on, learning all about Medicare and understanding it. And it's so important because they really do go one in one. Like Gary was saying, it's a holistic plan. We have to look at the whole individual. We have to look at their healthcare costs. We have to look at their doctors, their prescription drug plans. There are just so many aspects to them that go one in one, hand in hand with their financial planning. So we have to plan that out in order to know, what their investment strategies are going to be, what their savings, plans are going to be. We have to know what their healthcare costs are going to be. So it's very beneficial, in my opinion, to have a specialist on staff or somebody at least that they could trust to refer to.
Yeah, you got to establish that trust first. So, Ashley, what are some of the key challenges that you think clients are facing when navigating the Medicare system these days?
Oh, wow. So Medicare is so confusing. I don't know if either of you, probably Gary, read that Medicare and You book. It's very interesting. No,
yes.
Very boring. And it's not written in layman's terms. And every client Medicare beneficiary gets this big book sent to their house, and they're supposed to navigate through Medicare reading this book. It's there's A, B's, and C's of Medicare. There's carts, there's plans. We need to know so much. And then on top of it, the rules and regulations change every year. So it's completely confusing. And to have a Medicare specialist just gives, first of all, the client a peace of mind, which gives them less anxiety, which benefits their health.
Right.
And, I am the type of person that I basically hold my clients' hands through the whole process. And I'm here for them long term. I'm very into building a relationship. So I think that's really important. Building that long-term relationship. So if you have somebody in your office that is, there for them when they need them for any of their healthcare needs and Medicare needs, on top of that, their financial needs, they're not going to leave you.
Yeah, because they have, as consumers, there's so many other things everyone has going on in their lives that they can't be expected to know everything about everything. And they got to lean on someone like, yourself or Gary, that this is what you specialize in and can help them and they know who to turn to.
Exactly.
So I guess, Gary, building off that, can you speak to maybe some of the common misconceptions or things that are overlooked when you have clients that are doing their Medicare planning and are coming to JL Smith?
Yeah, certainly. To start out, I personally feel some of the marketing that they see on television or get in the mail is intentionally meant to disturb them emotionally or make them feel like they're not getting everything out of their Medicare plan. Obviously, that, hits home for the ones that are already on Medicare. But some of the other common misconceptions that I run into is, as people are living longer, they're working longer. So they're always confused if they're going to work past age 65, whether they should stay on that employer plan, if they need Medicare A and B, do they enroll, are some of the FAQs that they have. And then also, what are their options when they leave the employer plan, and how do they go about that? So I think that's really some of the misconceptions there that a lot of Medicare beneficiaries have, is just a lack of education on how they navigate through that if they're working past 65 or, aging into Medicare at age 65. So a Medicare specialist can really give them that education, that direction they need, that peace of mind so they can lay their head down at night on the pillow, knowing they're doing the right things. Because let's be honest here, Medicare is not forgiving, or, CMS, the Centers of Medicare Services, is not forgiving to Medicare beneficiaries if they make mistakes. Late enrollment penalties, or LEPs, they call them. Once they're applied, they can't be removed. So it's kind of like that. I don't even know what we used to call them, but those burrs when we were playing out in the yard that would get stuck on our socks.
Right.
Once those late enrollment penalties are stuck to us, we really can't, alleviate those. And I think that's the fear that most have. It's just making sure that they're not making any mistakes. And when the time does come where they need to select those secondaries, if you give them that education around that time, they're going to lean on you when the time comes to, enroll into those Medicare plans. So they've got a shoulder to lean on there.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent point, Gary, too, about it like, as advisors, not just trying to sell into this, but educate along the process. Because the more that you educate, even, especially during the not open enrollment period, when you're providing this free education, that you become that trusted resource, and they know that you're here to help them, not sell them.
You're absolutely right, Matt.
So, Gary, I know at JL Smith, kind of our point of pride is being holistic financial planners. And you touched on this kind of in your opening and how important this is to you and the firm. But how does integrating Medicare planning into the holistic financial plan benefit the clients?
Well, it certainly gives them a one-stop spot, as Ashley has mentioned, a one-stop spot where they can do that annual checkup on their Medicare plan, knowing they have someone to call on each year who is also looking at their situation from all the different sets of binoculars. Because Matt and Ashley, as we both know, all these areas of planning we talk about holistically, they overlap and they touch each other. And, that's really, why that front end planning of healthcare and Medicare planning is super important. Because again, that's the one thing, along with, let's say taxes or market downturns, that can really blow up their entire holistic plan if they do not have that, set, based off of what's important to them. So, that's really, I think, where we can bring extra value as educators, and also that shoulder to lean on when they have these concerns, questions as life happens.
Right. And of course, relating that from a consumer standpoint, they want to worry about the cost and how it impacts their budget. So, Ashley, can you talk about the potential impact of Medicare planning on a client's healthcare costs and how it ties into their broader financial goals?
Sure. So basically, if someone's drug coverage is not working for them because they go into the donut hole or the coverage gap, as they call it, and their drug ends up becoming a lot more expensive than they had planned for, that could be, detrimental to their savings, could exhaust all of that. And possibly maybe they would have to sell an investment or something to be able to pay for something that wasn't covered. So we have to optimize their health coverage and sort of know what their plan is for the year, every year. So that's how we keep them safe and keep them protected. Their financial well-being is very important.
No, that's great. Thank you very much for that information, Ashley. That's great information. And now, with open enrollment on the horizon, what advice would you give to advisors for their clients to be aware of, and how the advisor can proactively be preparing and making recommendations for their clients?
Well, definitely they should be reaching out, letting them know that it is open enrollment time. I'm sure many people do know already because of all the mail they're getting and everything, but there are enrollment deadlines. And I've gotten so many clients that have called me the day after enrollment, after I've sent them even emails or called, So I think just getting that out there, that it is open enrollment, knowing the deadlines, having that just foundational knowledge of what Medicare is, just the basics, just to know, and start setting up an appointments, maybe finding somebody that, if also knowing where their limit is on their knowledge and being able to communicate that and refer out when they don't know something. So they need to have somebody either, that they could refer to, that they trust, that they could get the advice, that they know that person knows what they're talking about. So I would say that would be a good start.
Yeah, that's very helpful, because obviously that's, if you have that Medicare specialist on staff, you have someone in house, and if not, someone like yourself, where they have that resource on hand to be able to refer to throughout the process to make
Even
it.
just, ask a question. They might have a question about an HSA and contributing to an HSA, and maybe they don't know. So that's the time when, instead of, Googling it, they have somebody that they trust, that, I always call them the guru in whatever subject it is, that they can reach out to for something like that.
Yeah, because if nothing else, you want to make it seamless on the client's end, that you're not just pointing them in a million directions, that we're handling that as advisors and providing that knowledge and expertise.
Exactly.
So I guess, Gary, from your end, is there anything that you wanted to add in terms of how firms can prepare for their clients during this period and throughout open enrollment?
Absolutely, Matt. It really kind of starts with that education that we do in the beginning. Whether we're just educating or we're educating and actually helping them, enroll. I show them really kind of the differences in the formularies. We'll get those prescription meds. We'll do that filtering through the offerings in the county that they live in. And we'll take a look at what that looks like across the, let's say 30 plus formularies. So in the situation where we're enrolling a client, I share that with them during that time, that, hey, this year, this may be the right Part D for you. It's obviously giving us lowest cost in the premium and the refill cost area at the pharmacies or mail order. But CMS can shuffle the deck on us, even if nothing changes on our end. So I then will show them, okay, here's number one recommendation for lowest cost all in for the entire year. But oh, by the way, let's go to number 32 and show them that other plan where it's the same list of meds, but boy, let's look at the cost if you were to stay on this plan, or maybe not do that review during the annual enrollment period. It really emphasizes the importance of that, Matt, to where it almost kind of startles them. And then from there, I'll mention to them, hey, we help a lot of clients in the area. And for us to call each and every one of them during annual enrollment period, it would just be overwhelming. So I want you to know it's your responsibility to reach out to us during the shopping window, which I call Medicare open enrollment, October 15th through December 7th. And it's important you reach out to us early, because we do cut that off, let's say about a week before the end of Medicare open enrollment, because we just simply want to make sure we get everybody in that wants the review. But I let them know, hey, it's your responsibility to reach out to us because this is an additional service we provide. But I think just kind of highlighting the differences in the formularies and how it relates to cost and what they will pay, boy, it really kind of hammers that home, and that resonates with them. So all of our clients here have been conditioned, and our phone starts ringing in sometimes even late August, first part of September, for those clients who want to do those reviews. And it's not only the ones who experienced inflated costs, in prescription areas, it's also ones who had plans that worked very well. So that's that added prep, I think, that needs to start on the front end when you're really kind of, onboarding them,
Right.
And giving them that education. It just kind of shows the importance of the shopping window, or AEP.
Right. Yeah. And as we said earlier too, the education piece, even before open enrollment, I know for you on the JL Smith website, you even have an educational webinar for Medicare that's on there that you can send throughout the year, just keeping them updated so they're prepared when they do get to that point come October.
Absolutely, Matt.
So Ashley, could you explain why having a Medicare specialist on staff or a resource like yourself at a financial advisory firm is becoming increasingly more important today?
Well, you're going to have that competitive edge. And like what we've been talking about this whole time, I mean, it's a wonderful peace of mind for a client to be able to come, and especially as they're getting older, and technology is going by so quick, and they don't know how to get always on the computer and understand things, and they're going to be walking into your office, to understand their Medicare. And from there, your base is growing. So, especially with the baby boomers, aging and needing more advice on their Medicare, they are looking for a specialist. So, you'd rather them come to you than anybody else. So, to have somebody on your firm as a specialist, they're walking in your door. So,
Yeah, you bring up an interesting one there too with you bring up the baby boomers and whatnot. And I guess it's kind of a question for either or both of you. Do you find that the questions or the needs that individuals are coming to you for are changing over time as you're getting into different generational gaps or things like that? Or because it's at the point in time where they've hit retirement and getting past that, are they pretty consistent, or have you found that they've maybe changed over time?
personally, I feel like it's been pretty consistent. It's always the same questions because it's like the timeline is very confusing. And like Gary was saying before, some people are on an employer plan and they love their employer plan, but they don't realize that they have the option to look at Medicare as well. And they might be saving by going the original Medicare direction. So, I mean, there are a lot of the same questions. I don't really notice anything different. What about you, Gary?
Yeah, I think it really is kind of, the timeline of, enrollment. What should I be doing if I'm staying on that employer plan? What should I be doing if I'm turning 65? What should I be doing and what are the steps if I'm looking to retire and exit the employer plan? And the other question is, should I stay on my current plan or go on original Medicare with a secondary? And sometimes that does make sense because one, it may give them the option to have more comprehensive coverage, that will travel with them and give them no out-of-pocket costs. And some people are really kind of looking for that. The other things we always talk about is, the rights of guaranteed acceptance and how we protect our clients in that area, because sometimes we have our clients or prospects who are already with condition and illness. They want to know what is the best way, what is the best type of plan, one, to keep them out of that underwriting scrutiny, so utilizing that guaranteed acceptance period properly, is really super important to them. So, I think those are some of the most frequently asked questions. And then I think even sometimes folks can get confused thinking, okay, if I go on Medicare, then I have to retire. Right? They don't understand that they can still work at their current employer and opt out of that employer plan and be on original Medicare with a secondary.
No, that's an excellent point. So, Gary, I'll start with you. If we have an advisor that's listening today and they want to take advantage of the open enrollment period coming up, but they don't have a Medicare specialist on staff, is it too late, or are there things they can be doing now, or do you have recommendations of how they should be preparing already for next year?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it is a process when we think about, certification with Medicare. Obviously we're working with the Centers of Medicare Services or the government. So it all starts with the EHIP or the American Health Insurance Practices certification. So that is kind of like the first step. Before that, obviously, if it's someone just getting started out, they're at a minimum going to need a life, health, and variable annuity license. Then they're able to take that AHIP. Once they pass that, which requires a 90% score, in order to pass, then that opens the door then to contract with those, insurance companies who offer, the Medicare Advantage sometimes called Part C, or the, prescription drug plans, Part D is what they're called, or even, Medicare supplement. So it's kind of education in steps, which opens the door up for, eventually being able to offer all those carriers and those companies. So if I were to say someone who does not have someone on staff, there are some things you can do this year to get yourself, one, prepared for next year, but also maybe even catch the tail end of annual enrollment, because there's opportunities throughout the year to help your clients with Medicare through those life-changing events or special election periods, that come about in life.
Thank you. And I guess I'll turn it to you, Ashley, but also kind of plug that, you coming in as CEO of Assure All Insurance and working out of our Petros office down in Florida. What would you recommend to advisors that maybe want to take advantage of that this year?
Well, I think not only having the technical knowledge a Medicare specialist should have, making sure they're licensed and they're experienced if they're not already. And, if it's somebody that you need to hire quickly or something, you want to make sure. I think the soft skills are very important, like somebody that has empathy, somebody that has good communication skills, that can bring the complexities of Medicare down to the level that our clients really need. I think that's a really important thing. It's not always about just, getting the 90% on the test. And it's, having somebody that really cares and knows how to educate and communicate with the client. So I think that's a really important aspect to an individual that they want to hire or use as their referral specialist.
Great point, Ashley, because, definitely, it is super important, right, that you take this big bowl of alphabet soup, I like to call it, called Medicare, and you simplify it in an understandable fashion where you're not missing anything or leaving anything out. A lot of times I'll start first with, the 2 P words, I'll call it, that have alphabet behind it. And a lot of times I'll start my meetings out with this, Matt and Ashley, because that's going to help us sort through the alphabet soup. And the first P word, part, right? We all hear Part A, Part B, Part C, Part D. To someone who isn't educated in this area, that is very confusing for them because it's completely different than what they've been used to their entire life. They've had a one-card system. They use it at the doctor, the hospital, and the pharmacy. That's how they understand insurance. I pay a premium through my employer, and then when I use it, most of the time, I'm probably going to even get some bills. So sorting through the alphabet soup starts with the 2 P words. Part automatically, right out the gate, tells us government. The alphabet behind it tells us what section of the government plan we're referring to. Okay? Anything that begins with part is subject to the shopping window each year called Medicare open enrollment or annual enrollment period. The next P word that has alphabet behind it, plan. Plan A through N, offered, let's say, in the state of Ohio. Plan right out the gate tells us private insurance companies or insurance companies in the state that we live in. It's important that everyone understands that Medicare supplements, let's say A through N, they're standardized based off of that alphabet that follows the word plan. And what I mean by that, Matt, is Matt can have a plan G with XYZ company. Ashley can have a plan G with ABC company. Gary can have a plan G with EFG company. We all may be paying a different premium each month, but when we go to the doctor or the hospital for the same injury, illness, or reason, we have the same insurance. Mm-hmm. So it's important that people understand those supplements are standardized based off the alphabet that follows the word plan. So part and plan, super important in understanding and sorting through the bowl of alphabet soup called Medicare.
No, thank you. That's good information for our listeners, our advisors, but for them to take back for their clients. I guess kind of as we land the plane here towards the end, Ashley, I'll come back to you. Is there so much great information here? So thanks to you and Gary for being on in terms of Medicare in general, open enrollment coming up, the importance of having a specialist at the practice level, at the office level, but also for the clients, that's who we're here for them, making it part of their holistic financial plan. Any last minute nuggets that you'd want to share for our advisors, our listeners with Medicare coming up for them to keep in mind as they're working with prospects and clients throughout this next couple months?
Just again, if it's something that sort of overwhelms you, there are people out there like Gary and I that are educated, and this is what we do. And if there's no one in house at this time, and they can look for that person to be able to ask questions to, and but other than that, I think it's amazing and to have a specialist on staff if you can have one, and yeah, I would say that that's about it.
Great. And Gary, any last minute words of closing from you?
Absolutely. Make sure you protect your practice, right? And what I mean by that is, Medicare and tax are those additional services we offer in a holistic practice. There's other folks out there using it as a feeder program for their financial and tax and holistic practice. So make sure you're doing your due diligence on the Medicare and the healthcare side, because that is one of those windows that a competitor can come through and appeal to a client of yours. So keep your arms around your clients, from that area of the Medicare and the healthcare planning, because that's how you're going to keep them long term. And one, it's your responsibility to do that as well as an advisor.
Great. Well, thank you both for those words in closing. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Gary, for joining us today. A very informative Rainmaker Multiplier On Demand podcast. For any of you listening that are with C2P and would like more information on Medicare and Medicare planning, please check out C2P Central or go ahead and book a mentor call with Gary. See, Gary, we got the shameless plug-in for you at the end there.
Yes.
And we'll make sure in the notes here for the podcast, contact information for both Ashley and Gary if you have additional questions. Thank you again for tuning in today, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for tuning in. This podcast was brought to you by C2P, an organization whose purpose is to educate, train, grow, and support holistic financial advisors so families can achieve true prosperity. Never miss an episode by subscribing now to discover new resources and strategies. Visit c2penterprises.com to learn how we can help scale and secure your business. At the time of delivery and any subsequent publishing, information was deemed reliable, but is subject to change by the time of listening or viewing. The contents of this piece include options and projections of C2P, are subject to change, and are for informational purposes only. The information provided in this presentation is not intended to be individual investment, tax, or legal advice.